Hey guys! We're gonna be starting like in 5-8 minutes. I gotta go to the bathroom, take the dogs out real quick. I gotta post all the links. So I will be right back. We'll start when I come back. Oh, that was fun. I just got a nice little shock to my skull with the audio. But here we go. 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors, 9 ways to blast my eardrums. It's been a while since I played this, honestly. And I will also be honest, I had to actually do a lot of prep work to make sure you guys had a visible spectrum. Because I will be honest, the UI I'm using actually has white borders around it, so I had to set up a black set of borders so you guys could have a nice visible view. So let's start. I actually had the save data there not because I had started the game already, but because I had actually pressed start to make sure the damn thing worked. And yeah, that's why. This game is fiction. All names, characters, and incidents portrayed in this production are fictitious. I wouldn't have guessed. I'm going to change the brightness on my monitor real quick. That way I can, it's not as... 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Whoa! Kaboom! A loud noise startled Junpei awake, and his eyes... Oh, crap! It's Junpei from Persona 3! As they had adjusted to the light, he realized that he didn't recognize his surroundings. Ow! With a crack, Junpei's head connected with something metal. He rolled over and threw out his hand to steady himself, but he found himself groping at empty air. Well, the empty air probably didn't appreciate the groping. His balance lost and his still fuzzy mind struggling to understand what was going on, Junpei tumbled down to the cold gray floor. Ouch! God damn it! How do you spell check that word? God! What the hell? I think the PS4 game was actually voice acted. I don't remember. I pray to God I don't have to read all the science jambalaya from the actual game. Junpei glared around the room, still trying to determine where he'd woken up. The fall had shaken the last cobwebs of sleep from his mind, and finally he'd understood where he'd fallen from. It was a bed. That looks more like a shelf. A 3-level bunk bed, in fact. No, that looks like a shelf someone attached a bunch of bamboo sticks to. Junpei had fallen, apparently, from the topmost bunk. His shoulder hurt, his knee hurt, his hip hurt, his entire body hurt. This is a kid's book, by the way. He could feel a bump forming on his forehead, where he slammed it against the low ceiling. He wondered if that bump was the reason he felt his vision wavering a bit, but that seemed unlikely. At first, he thought the tremor that ran through his legs was just another effect of his rude awakening, but as he looked around, he realized it was real. The whole room was shaking. Was it an earthquake, he wondered? It didn't seem likely. It was shaking far too quickly for an earthquake. Then again, Junpei had no idea what it was, if not an earthquake. He tried to tell himself it was important. Junpei rubbed the growing bump on his head. Junpei rubbed the growing bump on his head and gingerly climbed to his feet. His balance regained. He finally took his first good look around the room and muttered to himself, "Where am I?" His pain momentarily forgotten in the face of the confusion of his circumstances, Junpei looked around the room once again. Minutes passed while Junpei struggled to get his bearings. You know, I'm really missing the re-release of this game that added voice acting now. Then, as suddenly as they had begun, the tremor ceased. A cold silence fell over the room. From somewhere far away, Junpei could hear the sound of metal squeaking. It was probably a mouse. He felt his stomach tighten. There were 1,000 things the sound could have been, but none of the things he could think of were good. Well, you don't know. It could have just been a mouse. In an attempt to distract himself, Junpei looked around the room once more. There was a stove that looked more antique than functional. The 3-level bunk bed had mattresses that were so thin they were little more than blankets. On the other side of the room was an identical bed, and set in the wall between the beds was a slightly dirty iron door. The first thing Junpei noticed about the door was the rough number roughly emblazoned upon it. On the surface of the door, in red paint, someone had written 5. 5. 5. 5. Yes, 5! What does this 5 mean? It's how much patience I have left. Suspicious and utterly confused, Junpei approached the door slowly. Standing, at last, in front of the door, Junpei grabbed hold of the L-shaped handle. I'm turning into a narrator, by the way, at this point. A push yielded no movement, and a pull the same result. These things... Oh, God. I should have checked that there was voice acting in this before I did anything. I've already set... This thing is going to be 9 hours long. A few more tries cemented the truth in Junpei's mind. It wouldn't open. It didn't matter how much he pushed and shoved. The handle wouldn't budge. Next to the door was an odd-looking device that reminded Junpei of a card reader. It didn't take a genius to figure out the odd door-looking device was keeping the door shut. Junpei knocked hard on the door. Hey! Hello? Is anyone there? Open the door! There was no response. Junpei threw his left fist into the door and stopped. What the hell is this? He really wasn't sure what else to say. On his left wrist was a bracelet of a sort he had never seen before. In the center was a large LCD display. It looked like nothing else so much as a watch, but it clearly wasn't that. After all, it showed only a single number. 5. That's the same as the door. True, the numbers were the same, but he had no idea what that might mean. All he knew was that it was strange, and he wanted it off. Sorry. Junpei flipped his hand over as if to remove a watch, but the other side of the bracelet was solid. No buckle, no clasp, nothing. He sighed and flipped the thing back over. There were a number of rivets around the rim of the face. Perhaps... He pushed them, and nothing happened. On a watch there might be dials for adjusting date or time, but on this bracelet, they did nothing. Junpei was at a loss. What was he going to do? Growing more desperate, he began to tug at it. However... Damn! It's no good. Damn thing won't come off. A steel ring ran from the face around Junpei's wrist and back into the face. He wouldn't be pulling the bracelet off any time in the near future. What the hell is the deal with this thing? Frustration and desperation were beginning to mix as the reality of the situation began to dawn fully on Junpei. So much was happening and none of it made sense. Junpei felt as though he were about to explode. Where am I? And why the hell am I here? Why? Why? What the hell happened to me? It was at that moment he noticed the window. The window was round, rimmed and riveted brass, like a window from the early 20th century ship. What? Wait. Am I on a ship? Junpei walked slowly toward the window. He could see nothing beyond it but thick, impenetrable darkness. Junpei squinted, trying to see something, anything. It was at that moment. What the? You've got to be kidding me! What the hell is going on here? A crack split the glass of the window, and for a moment Junpei stared at it. Then the window burst, and water began to pour into the room. What the hell? God damn it! Junpei yelled and spun around. His feet slipping on the water already coming through the window, he ran for the door. Hey! Anyone! Is anyone there? Come on, if you're there, say something! There was no reply. As Junpei screamed and pounded on the door, the water began to rise. It was now ankle deep on the floor and rising quickly toward his knees. Things were not looking good for Junpei. Not good at all. He needed to find a way out, and quickly. Junpei ran a hand across his forehead, brushing the sweat out of his eyes, and looked around the room. Alright, we are now on to the puzzle part of the game. Okay. Alright. I'm not talking right now because I could use a little break on the voice part. I did turn on the... yeah, the desktop audio's on. Alright. Alright, I need a screwdriver for this. Okay. Let's check the Alright, so we got our cheat sheet. I'm going to print screen that, and I'm going to pull up Paint. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to cut that real quick. I'm going to go over here real quick and put that in the other window. Okay, so this would be 7, 4, I've already done that. Okay. Junpei grabbed the key and shoved it into his pocket. He had intended to leave immediately, but something stopped him. His reflection stared back at him from the mirror, but he'd scarcely recognized himself. What's up with my face? His confusion was well justified. His face was drawn and pale, and the dark circles under his eyes made him look as though he was nearly dead. Man, what the hell happened to me? How did I end up here? Even as he said it, something in his mind opened, and a memory bobbed to the surface. It was the last thing Junpei remembered before waking up in the strange room. It was past midnight when he came home. Junpei shuffled up the stairs and opened the door to apartment 201. Inside was his apartment, a small one-bedroom affair that ran about $630 a month? I would kill for that apartment money. Who do I have to fuck to get that? He moved into it when he entered college, and so far he'd been there for 3 years and 7 months. He stepped inside and turned on the lights. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling blinked and flickered slowly to life, as if waking from a deep slumber. Their cold light illuminated the landscape he'd come home to so many times. Everything was as he'd left it. The magazine piled up in the corner, the textbooks collecting dust, the CD cases covering the floor, the jeans and t-shirt he'd worn the day before, then tossed onto the floor. There was one thing that didn't belong, however. There was a breeze. Breaths of cold night air wafted into his apartment, carrying the smell of autumn with them. The white curtain framing his window swayed gently in the wind. Huh, that's weird. Did I leave that open? Junpei walked toward the window, trying to remember if he closed it or not before he left. One of the panes was hanging open. He stuck his head out and looked around. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He shrugged. He must have just left it open earlier. He closed the window. Then it happened. Junpei turned and found himself face to mask with a man dressed all in black. The man wore a deep hood and a bulky gas mask. His face was entirely hidden. Junpei tried to scream, but all he could manage was a strangled croak. He tried to step toward the man, but his legs could no longer support his weight. Junpei collapsed to the floor, a crumpled heap of limbs, like a discarded puppet. Too late, he noticed the white smoke that was quickly filling his apartment. A small object, shaped distressingly like a grenade, set on the floor in front of his face. Hissing, the white smoke poured out of it at an incredible rate. The smoke had grown so thick that the details of Junpei's apartment began to fade into the white haze. He could feel his mind began to fade as well, a white haze that was not the smoke creeping into the edges of his vision. A rasping voice wormed its way out of the gas mask. It was cold and harsh, and distorted in some way Junpei couldn't put his finger on. That was the last thing Junpei remembered. The white smoke overpowered him. The masked man faded from his vision, and he felt his consciousness fall away into the white mist. That's right. That guy with the gas mask. That son of a bitch must have taken me here. As to who the man was or might have been, Junpei had no idea. Indeed, he wasn't even sure that his assailant had been a man. The voice had been cold and mechanical, likely passed through a voice changer, and the body had been covered in a thick cloak. Who was the man in the mask? Junpei remembered that much, but what it might mean, that was beyond him. Junpei had no idea where he was, or why he was there. There was only one thing from his memory that seemed important. The nonary game, huh? What the hell is a nonary game? God damn it! With a yell, Junpei drove his fist into the mirror. Alright, back to the, Oh, right. Ah, another code. Good. Okay, so this one will be... Okay, this one's actually pretty simple. 0, 2, 8, 5. Okay, so we'll just put this down. I'll write this one down. 0, 2, 8, 5. Put a space there. Alright, so what was the other one? Alright, the other one is our little... Let's figure out these codes real quick. So it's 7, 4... Oh, 7463. 7463. I'm stupid. This game likes hearing itself text, doesn't it? Hey. Then again, I'm the one saying everything it's doing, aren't I? Alright, so let's try 7463. Alright, let's try the other one. What the hell? Damn it, it's not opening. Alright, let's look at the items again. Alright, let's look at the damn... Let's look at the cipher again. 7. Yeah, that's supposed to be 7. That's a 4. This one's obviously supposed to be a 6, and that one's supposed to be a 3. Is it upside down? Am I looking it wrong? Is it upside? Let me try it upside down. Let's try it like this. So if I look at it from the other way, that code would be... If I look at it like this, the code would now be... The code would now be a 1, an 8, a 2, and a 9. And the other code would be... Now, if we turn these upside down, we get... When we turn this one upside down, we still get a 0 and a 5. They just change places. So it would be 5. You get 5, 6, 4, 0. Okay, let's go try these codes out now. I don't need the instructions every time I have to do this. Okay, so it's not 5640. In fact, it's not 1829 either. Okay, am I missing something? Is it me? Okay, you know what? Let's try some of my key codes on the blue case now. It's gonna give me an operation code for every single thing I want to do, huh? Yeah, I said fucking. I went to go look up a guide. Sue me. Sue me. Did you want to be here all night? Yeah, this whole game is a bunch of fucking math. It's also a bunch of puzzles. It's also a bunch of making my head hurt. All right. I'm thinking about this too literal. That makes 15. So I want something lower. That's 8. Yay! Alright, I think this is gonna work. There we go. That's a new noise. Huh. Did it just unlock? Well, that light was red, now it's blue. No doubt about it. There's nothing keeping me in here now. Time to go. That only took me 40 minutes. Accompanied by a wall of angry water, Junpei shot out of the room and into the opposing wall. Gasping to catch his breath, he looked around. He was in a narrow hallway. The water that had followed him out of the room was rapidly pouring out the door. It flowed quickly into the hallway and slammed into the foot of the short flight of stairs. Just 5 steps, in fact. And atop of the short staircase, a door. Another door! Junpei leapt up the stairs, straight for the door. The door burst open, and Junpei exploded out of it, only to freeze in his tracks. What other possible response could there be to what he saw? What the hell? His voice trailed off, and all he could do was stare. A polished floor stretched out before him. Ornate staircases rising up from the edges, each one of them equidistant from the others. The stairs and pillars were solid wood, and the Art Nouveau embellishments and decorations covered the walls and pillars. It looked like nothing so much as the entrance to a luxurious mansion from the early 1900s. Junpei couldn't help but wonder, was he really in a ship? The water quickly filling the hallway behind him suggested that yes, he was. As he looked, a fresh wave rolled out of the room he'd been in, gathering speed as it moved toward the stairs. Yeah, that's what I thought. This is totally a... But... Wait, what the hell? A wave? Shit! I gotta get out of here! Junpei spun around, his wet shoes squeaking in protest on the polished floor, and ran toward the tremendous staircase in front of him. C deck. B deck. As he ran, he glanced quickly at the plates mounted on the wall, denoting the decks of the ship. He took the stairs 2 at a time, not entirely sure where he would find himself, just as he began to wonder where, in fact, the stairs did lead. Junpei saw another person out of the corner of his eye. He stopped short, nearly tripping over the next stair, and looked. It wasn't just one person he'd seen. On the line to the left of the stairs, there were 4 people staring at him. And on the right side, 3 more. All told, there were 7 of them. It looked as though they had been on their way down the stairs. They'd stopped short when they saw Junpei, their eyes wide. He'd done the same, of course, and now they stood there staring at one another. Junpei didn't move, one foot placed awkwardly on the next step in the middle of a stride. Who were these people? This entire interaction lasted only a matter of seconds. The woman spoke to Junpei, and time began to move again. I guess there's another one of us now. The woman was dressed, Junpei thought, rather like a dancer. Her clothing covered very little, and her prodigious jewelry little more. Hey, you! Come on! Hurry! With no further ceremony, she ran, straight past Junpei and toward the doors behind him. The sudden proximity of a woman with such striking assets left Junpei momentarily stunned. But the others wasted no time and quickly followed the strange woman. The first to pass Junpei was a young man with silver hair. He threw a quick glance in Junpei's direction as he ran, muttering, "One of us, huh?" Following him was an older man, his face calm and without fear. Soft wrinkles sprouted from his eyes, and he came close enough as he passed Junpei to see wisps of gray in his hair. His composure and shock of hair struck Junpei as rather like an elderly lion. "Going up won't do you any good. There are 2 doors, but neither of them will open." The next to speak was a girl with pink hair and a high voice. "Come on! Aren't you coming? We gotta hurry!" Her small hand was wrapped around the wrist of another man. His eyes were closed, almost as though he was sleeping. His features were graceful, almost serene, and he was dressed rather elegantly for someone his age. Something about his posture seemed very refined, and Junpei couldn't help but feeling he was noble and dignified somehow. He'd certainly never seen one, but this man seemed like what Junpei had always imagined a prince would be like. That's 9 of us, then. All of the cards in hand. What does all of the cards in hand mean, he wondered. Junpei opened his mouth to ask what the other man had meant, but the girl with pink hair rushed past him, and they were gone. He turned just aside to see 2 more people running toward him. One of them had hair like a bird's nest and looked as though a stiff breeze might topple him, and the other was a veritable mountain of a man. The scrawny one said nothing and scuttled past Junpei as though he were running from something. Hey! What the hell are you just standing there for? Didn't you hear him? The doors on A deck are no good! We gotta check the doors on B deck! Got it! Now go! Before he had a chance to respond, the man laid a massive hand on Junpei's shoulder. With no more effort than Junpei would have used to brush aside a fly, the man shoved him out of the way. Whoa! Thrown off balance by the man in recent events, it took Junpei a few steps to get his bearings. He finally regained his balance and looked up at what the 7 others had been running toward. There were 2 pairs of large iron doors set into the wall in front of him. They both looked quite sturdy, and each had handles jutting from them. Written across the surface of each door in red paint was a number. The door on the right had a 4, and the door on the left had a 5. They're the same. The guy Junpei had decided to call Silver was mumbling to himself. The room I woke up in had the number on the door just like that. You too, huh? With an arched eyebrow, the lion looked over at Silver. My cell was the same, a number upon the door. I opened it, ran down the hallway outside, and found myself in a rather grand room, full of stairs, as I suspect did the rest of you. It was as though the floodgates had been opened. They all began to talk at once. Me too. I did too. Yeah, a door with a number on it. It soon became clear that each one of them had woken up in a room with a locked door and solved the puzzle of escape. They all ended up in the same room, almost as though they'd been guided there. Yeah, we all saw the same thing. That's not important. We need to hurry. You think I don't know that, lady? Before the dancer had time to finish, Silver was already running. He grabbed hold of the door labeled 5 and pulled. However, fuck! It's not opening! The damn thing won't even budge! Move! You're in the way! The mountain grabbed Silver's shoulder and tossed him aside. His path cleared, he took a few steps back and threw himself at the door. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. The door shook as his body slammed into it, but showed no signs of breaking or opening. The mountain threw himself at the door again. Junpei turned toward door number 4. Door on the wall was a small box. It looked just like the one he'd seen in his room next to the door. If it was the same, then this door was likely locked as well. Still, he had to check. Junpei grabbed a handle and threw all his weight into it. Gah! It was locked as tight as the door next to it, as he suspected. Damn it! Junpei punched the door. It did not respond. Were these the only doors, he wondered? He'd barely finished the thought when the C-deck plate he passed up his way sprang unhid into his mind. His body moved before he had time to think. Junpei turned and ran toward the stairs. He had scarcely taken a step when, at the top of the stairs, next to an ornate clock embedded in the walls, he saw a person. It was a girl. She looked to be the same age as Junpei. He froze, unable to look away from her face. He wasn't confounded by her beauty or something equally silly. No, there was another reason he couldn't take his eyes off the girl. Junpei had seen her somewhere before. He couldn't quite remember where, but he knew. He knew he'd met her before. The girl, too, stared at Junpei, similarly stunned. Her response suggested she'd seen him before as well. Without saying a word, Junpei walked slowly toward her. She didn't move. It was almost as though she was held in place by some sort of magic spell. As Junpei stepped onto her landing, the spell broke. No sooner had he set his foot down than the whole ship shook a second time. Ah! The quake caught the girl unprepared, and she fell. Moving on instinct, Junpei leapt to catch her, or so he thought. Her face was far closer than it should have been, mere inches from his own. He was flat on his back, and she had landed squarely on top of him. The girl seemed as confused as he did, and her face suggested she still hadn't fully recovered from seeing him. For a moment, that seemed to stretch for a very long time. They stared at one another. The ship stopped shaking. Everything was quiet. Water could be heard from the bottom of the ship, lapping faintly at walls and ceilings, but eventually that faded as well. The silence was complete, a thick, muffling blanket. At last, the girl opened her mouth. "Oh my gosh! Is that you, Junpei?" Junpei. Junpei. Her words echoed through Junpei's head, and suddenly his memory returning. Akane? Why hadn't he realized it before? The girl was Akane Kurashiki. She and Junpei had been friends in childhood. They'd gone to elementary school together for 6 years. But what was she doing on the ship? Her soft eyes were only inches away from his own. He could feel the warmth of her face. Feelings he thought long forgotten began to work their way to the surface. He could feel his face heating up. At that moment, a speaker crackled to life, and a cold, eerie voice filled the room. With the voice's invasion, the spell between Junpei and Akane was broken, and all hints of burgeoning romance instantly forgotten. They hurriedly untangled themselves from one another and struggled to their feet. The 7 companions had heard the voice as well, and many of their faces had gone pale. They looked around frantically, desperate to locate the source of the voice. At last they'd found it. A speaker set in the ceiling. The voice was harsh, obscured occasionally by the crackle of static. But Junpei recognized it. How could he have forgotten it? It was the same voice he had heard from the man in the gas mask. "Hey, asshole! What the hell is this? Come on, man! Come on out here! I want to get a look at you!" "What do you mean to do to us?" Nonary game? What the hell's that? The voice continued, implacably. Nonary game. Hey, there's something in my pocket. Check this out. Silver reached into his pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper. The rest of them reached into their own pockets and pulled out similar slips of paper. Junpei followed suit and dug into the pocket of his pants. He felt the telltale crumple of paper, slightly damp from his earlier ordeal. Hey, I got one too. Then it would seem Zero seemed fit to greet each of us with a letter. Would you mind terribly reading it to us, young man? His request had been delivered to Junpei, who, after a short moment of surprise, did as he asked. On this ship, you will find a handful of doors emblazoned with numbers. We will call them the numbered doors. The doors in front of you are a pair of the same. The key to opening these numbered doors are the numbered bracelets that each of you possess. Should you total the numbers on your numbered bracelets and find that the digital root of that number is equal to the number of that door, the door will open. Only those who have opened the door may pass through. Then, there are, however, limits. Only 3 to 5 people can pass through one numbered door. All those who entered must leave, and all who enter must contribute. Bracelet. Junpei figured had to mean the bulky thing on his wrist. He glanced around. It looked like everyone else had one as well, and had come to much the same conclusion. The purpose of the game is simple. Leave this ship alive. It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. Junpei had reached the end of the letter. There was a long moment of silence, and the speaker crackled to life once more. There is one mistake in this journey. After a no-known tonight, the ship has begun to sink. On April 13, 1912, the famous ocean liner, the Titanic, crashed into an iceberg. After a negative for 2 hours and 20 minutes, it sank beneath the waters of the North Atlantic. All in your own time. 9 hours. Then it's a time you will remember to escape. The voice finished, and the speaker went silent. The sound of a bell tolling echoed through the hall. It came from the dance hall adjacent to the stairwell. It took those assembled on the stairs mere moments to trace the sound to an antique clock embedded in the wall. 7, 8, 9. The sound of the 9th bell faded away. The 10th never came. That meant the time was 9 o'clock. Most likely 9 o'clock in the evening. When Junpei had peered out of the window of the cell, he had seen nothing but blackness. It had to be nighttime. If that was the case, then they would need to escape by 6 a.m. the following day. Now, it is time. Then our game begin. I wish you all the best of luck. The speaker went silent and did not speak again. Okay, let's take a second. I need to rest my voice for a second. Oh. Woo! Okay. Silver yelled at the speaker with language coarse enough to embarrass the sailor, but the rest of Junpei's companions were silent, deep in thought. Junpei, too, was consumed by his thoughts. There was a great deal he didn't understand. Who was Zero? What was the Nonary game? Why had he chosen to make them part of it? Was he a criminal who took delight in playing with his victims? Or did he have some other purpose? And why had Junpei been chosen as part of this insane game? Why had any of them been chosen? But one question was foremost on his mind. Akane. They hadn't seen one another since elementary school. Why had she appeared now? Coincidence? No. That seemed impossible. There had to have been a reason. He didn't know what it might be, but there had to be a reason. Very well. The lion's voice seemed oddly loud in the silence. Standing around won't do us any good. Best we get moving, don't you think? On that note, I'm actually going to stop for the night because my voice is actually killing me. And Jesus, I did not realize it was going to take that long. So we will stop for the night. I'm actually going to continue this another night because this was actually a lot of fun to do some voice acting for these characters. So I will continue this on, how about Sunday night? Would that be fun, guys? We can do this on Sunday night. We'll make a normal thing of this, and we'll continue this every once in a while. I want to continue this, actually. I want to finish this game. Alright. Anyway, I am Davin Skolnick, and I'll see you all next time.